Y'all ready for some more Minnesota corruption stories? I got one for you. Okay, so back in the early 90s, George H.W. Bush decided to start settling some of the Somalians into Minnesota, of all places. Had something to do with agriculture. Since then, their population has increased to like 100,000 people. All in the same state, in the same city. Oh, let's not forget, they get first dibs on Section 8 housing. They also get government assistance. They also have these huge speakers that blare out across the city. What is it, 3 to 5 times a day? I can't remember how many times, for calls to prayer, because they're all Muslim. That right there is interesting in itself, but it gets crazy. So they decided to do this big DEI hire in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and they hired a Somalian to be a police officer. So he's working. And there's a girl, she was an Australian American who saw somebody getting assaulted in the alley behind her house. And her name was Justine Damon. So she calls the police for help. Well, when the police car pulls in, she's in her pajamas, she goes out to the police car. Y'all, this is where it got crazy. She got to the car. Muhammad Noor was in the passenger seat of the patrol car. He reaches in front of his partner, unloads on her, ended her life. She was the one that called him. He goes to court. He gets charged with third-degree murder, 12-year sentence, and then something really weird happened. Oh, let me back up. He refused to speak to anybody about it at all. He pled the Fifth Amendment, wouldn't talk to him. So he was sent away to jail for 12 years. He's in jail, and they decide to let him out in 5 years. He's a free man now. And there is no real reason why he unloaded on her. He wouldn't tell the cops. His partner said that, oh, he heard this noise and it spooked him. But he's a free man now, walking the streets of Minnesota with not a care in the world. He got away with murder, guys. Wonder why? Is it because he was Somalian? And there's a reason they want to have a high population of Somalians in Minnesota? Would Omar have been reelected had there not been? Is there any way to get her out of office with this huge voting bloc she has? I don't know. This is just one of the other stories I have. If you want to hear more about Minnesota corruption, follow me, because I'm going to be posting a lot more on this in the coming days.
Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, Africans. I hope you're faring well where you are, and if you're not faring well, please fare well where you are. So there is something that we all need to understand. Everything in this world happens for a reason. And there's always a good reason and a real reason. And Another thing, according to the principle of sufficient reasoning, it says that nothing happens for no reason, and there's always an explanation for it, right? Remember when Trump canceled the SNAP benefits, he also canceled the electronic benefit transfers, you know? He was doing this with the knowledge that some of the beneficiaries of these EBT and SNAP were gaming the system, you know. Some people were really not in need of the funds, but now they were burdening the system and overloading it to an extent that those who were really in need were not getting the EBT and the SNAP benefits. So it forced Trump to come and withdraw from it, right? So in the event of Trump withdrawing the EBT and the SNAP, he came across a certain issue, or rather, Trump is a very smart, very, very smart guy. So he discovered that there is a certain fund that is always allocated for people with autism. Autism is a mental disorder where it's really not schizophrenic, but someone has some unusual tendencies. And there's a wide spectrum of autism. We don't have one case, it's a wide spectrum of it, you know. So what happens is that Trump and the American government have been funding people in Africa, to be specific, a country called Somalia, right? Trump has been funding these children in Somalia with autism for them to get good food, good education, to heal their autism, and also to help them live a good life, you know. So the American government has been pumping a lot of money. And from the reports I can get, it is told that the amounts are up to 250 million US dollars. That's a very insane amount of money if you convert it into Kenya shillings. Even without converting, 250 million US is such a huge amount. So apparently these people have not been helping the kids. They have been keeping this money for themselves. Even here in Kenya, we have some Somali people. People have been complaining that Somalis are creating big things, doing this and that. Where do they get the money? So people have found a space to lament, or rather to complain, or to show their frustration, right? Anyway, there's a long, long story to this. So I want us to listen to this woman. She has a different narrative from what we have. Let's listen to her. I shall get back by the end of the video, of course, where we shall also have a deep critical analysis.
Minnesota, listen up. You're going to want to hear this. City Journal just dropped a bombshell, and it is so much bigger than anybody even realized. Investigators say millions. My guess is it could be up in the billions, in Minnesota welfare money was stolen through fake daycare centers, fake attendance list, and organized fraud rings. Here's the part nobody wants to talk about. Some of that money, it didn't stay in Minnesota. According to reporting by City Journal, some of that money has gone overseas to Somalia. But that's not the end of it. Very likely it went into a territory controlled by Al-Shabab, which is an Al-Qaeda-linked terrorist organization. Let that one sink in. Our tax dollars hard at work against us. Now, these are allegations by investigators and journalists. And no, I don't believe every Somali person is involved, but this is information that the public has a right to know about. We are talking about taxpayer money meant to help families, children, child care, being funneled to one of the deadliest terror organizations in the world. How does this even happen? How does that much money go missing? Where was the oversight? Where were the audits? If Minnesota can lose millions of dollars like this, you gotta wonder what else is slipping through the cracks. Because let's be real here. Where there's money, there's motive. And when there's no oversight, anything can happen there. Okay, so if you'd like a part 2 on this and want to learn more about how was the fraud done and why did nobody do anything about it, then comment part 2. And as always, if you like content like this and you want to see more fraud stories, follow me. I post a lot of Minnesota fraud stories. I do fraud stories from other places too. Also started doing a lot of foster care, CPS fraud stories. There's a lot of fraud. In part 1, I told you millions of Minnesota taxpayer dollars disappeared. Now in part 2, I'm going to tell you exactly how they did it. Step 1, create a daycare center. No need for it to be big. Just put up cute posters and put out toys. Then you sign up for the Child Care Assistance Program. And that's where the government pays providers for low-income families. Step 2, and this is where it gets wild. You build the state for kids who don't even show up. Or you take a real family, offer them cash or diapers in exchange for their child's name. Then you bill the government 8 hours a day, every day. Step 3, when investigators show up, suddenly everybody's a cousin, neighbor, or they're helping out. Every receipt looks perfect. Every form is filled out. It's fraud disguised as paperwork. The City Journal reported one daycare billed the state for more children than actually lived in that neighborhood. Step 4. This is where it starts getting darker. After the payouts hit the account, the money gets withdrawn as cash. Not checks, not cards, cash. Investigators reported some cash was flown overseas, yes, flown, in suitcases up to $1 million at a time. Step 5. Okay, this part is alleged, but serious. Some of the cash went to Somalia, said that in the last video, not to families, not to community programs, but to regions under the control of Shabab, the Al-Qaeda linked terror group. And nobody even tried to stop it. So 6, the big question here. How did Minnesota lose millions without noticing? Well, it's because the system relies on trust. Counties rubber stamp paperwork, audits barely happen, and whistleblowers get ignored. And that's just one program, just one. One doorway for money to disappear. I'm going to do a part 3, and that's going to give you the names, the indictments, how the FBI got involved, and the political fallout. So, if you're liking the series, follow me for part 3. All right, here we go. Part 3. This is where things get messy. So after the daycare fraud schemes hit the news, lawmakers, whistleblowers, and even the FBI started to pay attention. Not one case, not 2 cases. There were dozens of cases. So suddenly, names start popping up. Real owners and real companies. Some are charged federally. Some start fleeing the country. Others are still trying to fight the charges. The FBI has publicly acknowledged this. Minnesota is a hot spot for money flowing overseas, especially to Somalia. And yes, the FBI has said some money has ended up in territory controlled by Al-Shabab. Then things went nuclear. State agencies blamed counties, counties blamed DHS, DHS blamed lack of oversight, and politicians were pointing fingers at each other while millions of dollars evaporated. So when City Journal reported that some of the stolen money may have traveled overseas and may have reached areas linked to Al-Shabaab, that's when the whole state went quiet. That's when everybody thought, if this is happening once, how many other money streams are funding this? So here's what nobody in the Minnesota government will say out loud. How much money total was stolen? Which agencies failed to stop it? How many people were involved? Where did the money go? Why did warnings and whistleblowers get ignored for years? This isn't about communities. It's not about ethnicity. This is about systems that failed and people who got rich because nobody was paying attention. And if millions slip through that hole, what else is slipping through right now? Part 4. Now we talk about the part that the Minnesota officials are going to hate. Everyone knew something was wrong. For years, auditors, insiders, even regular parents reported fraud in CCAP, child care subsidies, cash assistance programs. Guess what? No one did anything. Why? Politics. Straight up politics. Because Minnesota's system, it is built on protecting departments, not on protecting taxpayers. DHS didn't want to embarrass counties. Counties didn't want to embarrass DHS. And legislatures, they didn't want to lose votes. They have a culture of don't ask questions. Because people inside agencies literally said, we don't investigate, we process paperwork. And that is how millions of dollars walked right out the front door. The whistleblowers, they were punished. They weren't heard. One whistleblower was told to stop digging. Another one said that their supervisors buried reports. Another one noted that audits were blocked. So why did no one stop it? Because calling fraud what it is meant exposing failures at DHS, in county agencies, in licensing units, auditing divisions, federal oversight. And nobody wanted that smoke. So the question remains, if the system won't police itself, who will? Follow me and stay tuned for part 5. You want to know how money leaves Minnesota and ends up overseas? Here's the breakdown. No sugarcoating. Part 5 of our series. When money hits a bank account, it is withdrawn in cash. Not traceable like wires, not flagged like digital transfers, just cash. And this is where the Hawala method kicks in. It's an underground money transfer network used worldwide. It's not illegal by itself, but it's perfect if you want to make money disappear. So how does Hawala work? Well, it's like this. You hand cash to a U.S. broker. They call a broker in Somalia. Someone overseas gives the recipient the money. No banks, no wires, no paper trail. Investigators say some cash was literally flown overseas in suitcases. Sometimes $500,000 to $1 million at a time. Yes, really. So why does this matter? Because once money enters Hawala, or like a physical transport, you cannot track whose hands it ends up in. Some goes to families, some goes to villages, some goes to regions controlled by Shabab. And that's exactly what investigative reports have warned about. You wanted the money trail? That's the trail. Stick with me. Part 6 is coming. Let me connect the dots, because Minnesota's fraud problem isn't just welfare. It's CPS too. Part 6 of our series. DHS oversees both child protection funding and welfare programs. Guess what both have in common? No audits, no accountability, no verification. Just like daycare attendance gets rubber stamped, CPS decisions get rubber stamped too. They have unlicensed workers, wrongful removals, no internal investigations, no checks on county actions. It's the same system and the same failure. When oversight collapses, children and money are at risk. When there's no accountability, money gets stolen. Families get torn apart. Children get placed with strangers unnecessarily. This isn't a coincidence. It's a pattern. And this is the part people hate hearing. But if a system can lose millions of dollars without noticing, that same system can easily mishandle CPS cases without anyone questioning it. Fraud, child protection, welfare, it's all connected. One system, one problem. If you want part 7 to this, how this mess can be fixed, how to hold Minnesota accountable, let me know. Comment part 7 and we'll continue the series. Part 7. And listen closely, because this is where everything changes. For years, Minnesota officials have acted like this fraud, waste, and chaos was too big to fix. But that's a lie. Every dollar in public programs should have a trail. Mandatory audits, real-time tracking, independent oversight, and not the same agency just checking over their work. Audit everything. Whistleblowers need power. No more silencing. No more retaliation. Whistleblowers should be protected, rewarded, and heard, because every major scandal in history was exposed by one person who refused to stay quiet. If you're handling taxpayer money, or making decisions about families and children, you must be trained, licensed, and accountable. No more unqualified workers, no fake oversight, and no more loopholes. What's needed is transparency. Budgets, payouts, investigations should all be made public, not hidden in emails, not buried in reports, not locked behind bureaucracy. The public deserves to see where their money goes. We need to see real consequences. Where there's fraud, prosecute it. Negligence, fire people. Cover-ups, expose them. Because where there are no consequences, corruption becomes a habit. Can anybody say Minnesota? And here's the part nobody wants to admit. This isn't about a community. It's not about an ethnicity. It's not even about politics. It's about a system that failed, and it will continue to fail unless people start demanding better. If Minnesota can lose millions, if families can be torn apart, if oversight can collapse this easily, then the real power is not in the system. It's in us. Comment enough if you're ready for part 8, the plan to force change.
You see, I can't really blame Trump for this. I can never ever really blame Trump for removing some of these benefits, you know, because some people somewhere who are in position of power ain't really there to help, but they are there to see how they can get helped, you know. They are there for their own benefit, but not for the benefit of those who have, who they represent, you know. For this case, the Somalis, they were lying that they were supporting the kids in Africa with autism, you know. You see, they went to a very, very long extent just to lie to the system and create benefit for themselves, you know. And this is something that has always happened. It's not just the Somalis who have done it. The Somalis might have done it on a large scale, but this is a problem that we have been having in Africa. Africa is having a lot of resources, but our corrupt leaders, our corrupt individuals are finding leeway. They're finding it easier to commit crime, you know. And one thing that I believe facilitates the crime is because there is no punishment for them, you know. But once they can get the punishment, once they can be put into accountability to an extent that there is a death sentence, people will see a huge drop in corruption, you know. Right now, the Somali children are going to suffer because of what their parents or maybe their representatives have been doing, you know. And Minnesota being a state in USA, I believe it also has a government. One thing I'm trying to figure out is, did the state not know about, or rather did the governor not know about this scandal, right? Because this is something that has been taking place for years. Trump is the one who has just discovered it, right? So he has cut it all. He has cut those aid everywhere. Even Trump removed the US aid because he discovered US aid is not working as intended. It is benefiting people. We might be very fast to call Trump out, but remember, we ourselves were the ones placing the rope on our necks. We are digging our own graves, and then now we are blaming Donald Trump. You know? Donald Trump is a president who is protecting his own country. Even if it was me, I discovered that I'm pushing some funds to some place by taxing my people, and I discover the funds is not working.
maybe I would even go to a tougher extent than what Trump has done. Right? I'm not pointing at Trump. I'm trying to see a reason to why Trump did what he did. You know, to this extent, I believe Trump is right to cut it out. You know, at least from there, now we can start a fresh registration, a fresh nation where now there is people on the actual ground, people who can actually verify the current situation of the people in the country, you know. But corruption among black people, I don't think it's something that is ending soon, right? It's something that's not ending soon. And whenever someone has property that they can't explain where they got it, we have to understand one thing. If they can't explain, they don't deserve. They can't explain, they robbed it. That is how it works. That is how it goes, right? Right now we have uncovered something that has always baffled the minds of people here in Africa. I mean, these people build houses, big houses, skyscrapers, rental homes. Here in Kenya, I see it. We are neighbors. We have some of them living here. They build so big mountain houses, cars, this and that. So we have discovered where the money comes from. The money comes from US, and we are always having US dollar, even here in Africa. They're always having US dollar. You will always find a Somali in the US dollar, right? So you ask yourself, where did they get the money from? Now we know where they get the money. They may say that they are coming to develop Africa, Kenya, but why don't they take the money that they have stolen to Somalia to build Somalia? That's my question. But I'm not saying that everyone who is a Somali and has property has stolen. No. But we have some of you who have stolen, and the news is out there. Not my words. The news is out there. I believe once we have accountability and once we have capital offenses being reinforced, you will see a huge drop of some of these misconducts, you know. Yeah. Share with me your thoughts. I'd really love to hear what you have to say. See you in the next one.